All righty. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here for Learn at Launch. As you know, we do these every month. It's the last Friday of the month, and afterward we have free co-working Fridays. So if you are a member, please stay. But if you're not a member, you're more than welcome to stay and work in our common space over there. You can come talk to me or David, who's back in the booth, or Rose, and we can help you get set up and kind of give you a quick tour. But today, I'm super excited and really happy to see everybody here because we've got an amazing speaker, Karen Mangia, who I reached out to cold, and she was so kind to answer and to work this out for us. But she is a national, really international now, keynote speaker. She is the Senior Vice President of Global Client Success at Bazaar Voice. She'll tell you a little bit more about what Bazaar Voice is. And former VP of Customer and Market Insights at Salesforce, and the author of 2 books, which I will also let her tell you about. 6 books. Oh, well, I clearly didn't use the AI deep search, did I? Anyway, we're super excited to have her here and to learn more about this topic. So I'm going to ask Karen to come to the stage and see me if you have any questions, and we'll talk a little bit more at the end. Thanks. Bye.
It was a goodbye for 1 hour from now, right? Okay. Actually, the story of me being an entrepreneur in those 6 books really started here, believe it or not, at Launch Fishers, because that's when Kristen had just started. It was the Launch Ladies at the time, and she heard me give a speech at an executive women's event in tech, and I reluctantly agreed to do this speech because they wanted a motivational speaker to close a conference on a Friday. Please read this as, I am standing between you and wine, number 1. Number 2, I think motivation is very personal. Like, what motivates and inspires someone can be very different. And I thought it sounded awful. She's also one of the nicest people on the planet, and eventually she wore me down. I cannot make this up. It was a women's executive conference. Yet there were men in the audience, including like former professors, an ex-boyfriend. I started at the beginning of the speech. I found the exit, and I thought, you know what? You get what you pay for. This was a free speaking engagement, and so if I need the exit, it's right there. And I was prepared to walk away. And I started telling a story at that point in time that I called powerful pauses. I was coming out of a period in my life where if you looked at my LinkedIn profile, it looked amazing. I mean, you wanted to be me if you only read my LinkedIn profile, and the LinkedIn of my life didn't match up with it very well. And here's why. Along the path to this thing we call success, whatever that is, whatever that means to you, I thought that meant kind of going all in all the time, full speed ahead. And as I've been in this world of entrepreneurship, we'll talk about how all in really means all in, right? I mean, you are 24/7, truly, your company, your job, your startup, your idea, along with whatever else you're trying to do to float that. So in this instance, we've known each other for forever, not the ex-boyfriend in the audience, by the way, from the speech I just told you, in case anyone's starting to filter that algorithm. But be that as it may, I was sharing this story of I had these mysterious things that started happening to me. I would notice, I was getting really tired. I was starting to kind of gain some weight. At that point, I'm leading this huge sales team. There's a lot happening. And so I did what we all do. You start to explain these little things away. Well, I'm tired because I've got these client dinners and this huge team, so I'm staying up late doing work. I'm gaining weight because we take these clients out to dinner, and let's face it, what you eat at a restaurant on a Tuesday if someone else is paying is very different than what you eat at home on a Tuesday and you're paying. And so I thought, well, then I'm missing workouts to try to do the work that I didn't do when I was at the work dinner. So of course this makes sense. Until one day it becomes such an impossible to ignore situation. I'm in my early 30s. I go to pick up my phone to call my brother, and I realize I cannot remember his name. I have one brother. I talk to him every week. And I mean, I've got nothing. His name is approximately fill in the blank. I had to take the contact list on my phone, narrow it down to my own last name so that I could, from a pick list, pick him out. And I was like, this is not good. I had no idea at the time, and it might surprise you to discover looking at me now, That became the front end of 3.5 years of major medical misdiagnosis. There's your business. No one could figure out what was wrong with me. And during that time, I gained 55 pounds and did not have a baby. My hair fell out. My skin turned gray. And one day I looked in the mirror and my eyes had actually changed to a different color. And nobody knew what was wrong with me. And I never missed a day of work for being sick. Which sounds crazy, and every single one of you sitting here has your version of it. You haven't taken a vacation where you didn't secretly check work from the bathroom or take the most important call since you probably can't even come up with when. And so along that journey, when I was in my period of recovery, which it took 5 years, once I got a correct medical diagnosis to get to a clean bill of health, that was the point at which I was asked to give this motivational speech. And so I told this story about discovering that the pauses in life we choose are very powerful, right? Major medical sort of happened to me, and that was a pause in some ways that was inflicted on me. When I started making choices to make room to get well, I found it was very empowering if I chose to pause. Being on a not-for-profit board, which, while worthwhile, was at odds at the moment with having time to get well and getting the rest I needed. So I gave this speech about these powerful pauses, and at the end, people came up to me, they're telling me their own stories and how they went all in on something or lost someone really valuable to them that they felt they hadn't spent time with and they were filled with regret. And I got a phone call about a week after that, and it was Kristen when she had the Launch Ladies, and she said, I want to talk to you about your speech. And I just thought she probably wanted me to give that speech to some other group of people. And she said, you have to do something with your speech. I was like, no, I don't, because I have a day job. And she said, you've got to write a book. You have to tell this story, and here's why. And I was like, I do not want to write a book. That was like not on the roadmap. I did end up writing that book. It was called Success with Less, Releasing Obligations and Discovering Joy. And it was about a new formula for success called Pause, Ponder, Prioritize. Having the courage to really pause and think about what matters to you and release what doesn't serve you to make room for what does. And so I got a trademark on that, which she helped me figure out. That became the genesis, ultimately, of a lot of side consulting and speaking and 5 more books, Wall Street Journal bestselling author. So lots of fun. There's a range of types of books. It's not all just the success piece. It started here, though, and it started with really something that we're going to talk about today, which was what Kristen was tuned into in that moment that I was not, because I was focused on where the exit door was, if it was so awful and I was bombing that I could just leave. What she was focused on was how the audience feedback was tracking at every point in that journey. And what she observed, because she happened to be sitting in the back of the room, and she relayed this to me later, she said, when you started, it's Friday, you're standing between you and the wine or somebody getting home for their weekend plans. And she said, I watch people, they're on their phones or they're on their laptops in some cases and chitter-chattering. And she said, you hit the point where you summed up this, your career looks awesome and you are just crashing out in life and not taking a break. And she said, people got quieter and quieter and suddenly no one was on their phone. And suddenly everyone was hooked into what you were saying. And she said, what you did was you normalized for everyone the price of success. And they were tracking with your story because it was authentic and real. You didn't quit your job and start a survey about burnout, right? To figure out what are the drivers of this and how do we, what you were telling us on some level, we think we want your life because your title and your job and all that looks great. But now you're telling us the toll that took in a very real way. And so it hooks to a couple of things that we'll talk about today. One, I'm grateful for these accidental entrepreneurial roots that started right here. Also, the power of tuning into feedback. See, I missed all the signal that was happening in the audience because I was focused on not being awful. That was the main goal, as I mentioned. Kind of like we do as companies, right? We stop listening to our customers because we think as the company or as the entrepreneur who started something, that everything good that's going to happen for the client starts here and goes out, when the reverse is actually true. It starts out there and comes in. And then the last piece of that story is what it is you do with that feedback. How do you turn that into the kind of authentic experiences that really build loyalty and deepen trust and bring people along that journey with you? By the way, people always ask me, what it is that I had. And I like to get close to anyone who looks like they could possibly have OCD and offer to shake their hand after I describe being so well, because everyone's like, is it contagious? Why are you so close to me? If I cough, then they really freak out. Sneeze, maybe. Interestingly enough, when I finally got to that correct diagnosis, I had DDT pesticide poisoning. So when I was a kid, you know, they drive through your neighborhood with the little fog machine and spray for mosquitoes with things like that and spray lots of farm fields. I had a toxic level of that in my system and it activated. And what I found so interesting actually about that diagnosis is, while I literally had poison in my body, it's possible I got so sick and stayed sick for so long because I had poisoned myself with a toxic set of beliefs about what success was and what I was willing or needed to do to be successful. And you know what? I discovered your health is too big of a price to pay for anything that you might associate with success. And it became a real turning point in my story. It's why I talk about it. It's why I share it. It's also, having spent 2.5 years of my career working at a tech startup, bringing a multi-agentic AI solution to life and living in that motion of what truly all-in means when you're operating a business on someone else's money with a board that wants their money back, how much easier it is to get pulled into the all-in, never rest mode. And how do we use some of the signals that we get from the marketplace and from our clients to tune our activities so that we're putting our best effort toward our best return and matching the problem we're trying to solve with what someone's willing to pay for that helps turn that flywheel quicker and scale your idea. A little bit about the company where I work, just to give you a sense. I have no idea where this sensor is that is using this. Is this thing on for advancing a slide? Okay, we're currently on a road to nowhere, which is okay. We'll try the other arrow. Let's see. Oh, there we go. That's fun. Okay. Yes. So this is the first thing I know, right? We need the plates. All these are plastic, and we've got to throw the plates, as the good Greeks do at the end of every party. Sicilians, we're too cheap to do that. Save all the plates and everything you ever owned. That's what we do. The thing I want to put out to you is, like, when is the last time that you were a customer of your own company or this idea that you're building? And here's what I mean by that. When was the last time you looked at what someone has written online about you, your company, or your idea? When was the last time, if you've got a website that has already been stood up, that you tried to contact your own company from your own website to see if it works? How many of you, it's been in the last week that you've tried to be a customer of your own company? Good job. How many of you in the last month? Now stand up if you took some action on what you discovered from being a customer of your own company. Awesome. What action did you take?
Well, I'm bootstrapping a startup, so I'm correcting everything I see broken.
That's awesome. Yes, so you're doing discovery to fix problems. What about you? Okay, great. So you took it, you're looking for problems, you're looking for gaps. It's important that we are intentional in that journey of understanding what that customer flow looks like and what that experience is like to try to do business with you. I am amazed, and perhaps you've had these experiences too, at the number of small businesses that I tried desperately to give money to with broken web forms that will not return your phone calls. I literally, I'm not joking, someone I was trying to get to do work at my house, by the 5th message, I was so desperate, I said, this is my exact voicemail. I am calling because I want to drive a pile of cash to your business. I want to back it up and I want to dump it on you, but you would have to call me back for that to happen. Raise your hand if you think I got a call back. I did not. So there's all kinds of stranded value, and we're going to talk about some of these signals, places, and ways that there are stranded value that we could be capturing. By the way, if someone calls you and says they want to back up a money truck, you should call them back and make that a priority. Even if you are very major medical, you can make that phone call from the parking lot before you go into the hospital, okay, to get your treatment. That one I will endorse. So just a little bit about the company where I work called Bizarre Voice, and the gift of this clicker. Why don't you just bring me the laptop so that I don't fight with this for the rest of our time together, as much as I'm enjoying this. And everyone in the audience is too. So the company that I work at is called Bizarre Voice, and it is the software that you've used that you've never heard of. And the reason for that is we have the software that powers online ratings and reviews. And so what, other than Amazon, Amazon has their own proprietary solution. But for example, imagine that you were buying a Dell laptop or you were buying some L'Oreal makeup and you went onto that site and you wrote a review. We would first of all verify that you're a real person. And then we would verify that you bought that product. And then in addition to publishing that review and maybe putting it on their product pages, you know, the product detail pages where we all click on it and say, how tall is this thing or how difficult is it to install? Maybe you bought, you know, a TV that you have to hang on the wall and you want to know, what am I really getting myself into, right? Is this a Saturday project or I'm going to be so miserable kind of project? And then we would syndicate that review to every retailer that carries that same product. So that could be, some of our clients are, you know, Walmart and Target and Best Buy and those kinds of places. So what happens for someone who is a brand, and we've got over 13,000 brands in our portfolio, is that that single review that someone writes gets amplified across multiple platforms. The other thing that our software does is that it helps to identify and give more information to the anonymous shopper, right? Like we all try to go do things where we're not logged in to an account, right? You're just going to browse something and maybe you're clicking on different pages. Well, obviously that retailer gets the data or that brand gets the data that someone has been on there. And the other thing that our software does is help do discoverability and conversion of the anonymous shopper so that people get revenue uplift from what happens. And so we really think about how do we drive reach, traffic, and conversion. You want to go to the next slide? So one of the things that's happening, and because we're talking about AI and getting this feedback in the day and age of AI and large language models, is that being discovered is becoming an increasingly complex arrangement. Because what's happening is where people used to go was, you know, the browser on your phone or the browser on your device, right? That's where you went to do your product research, or you go to Yelp because you're checking out the restaurant. Now where do you think people go to do this research? Gemini, ChatGPT, yeah, the AI of your choice. And what happens in this world is, you know, so much, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, but so much of how brands try to put content forward is using search engine optimization, right? The keywords and all the ways that when you go into that browser and execute a search because you're looking for something, how does your brand, or how do you make sure that you end up at the top of the list? Well, now people are going to AI-driven engines to do the same thing because they perceive it to be a simplified search. And so what's happening in that world is there are just more places that people are going to look for information, and sometimes they're going to more than one place. So 88% of consumers now do what's really called an omni-channel experience. So they might look at your company's, you know, Instagram or Facebook or some kind of social media presence. They might also look up your ratings and reviews, and then they might ultimately go to ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot to really refine that search. So now it's to be discovered, you don't just have to win and be present and optimized in one channel, you've got to be optimized for all of them. The next is, you know, 68% of people say that they have used AI for their shopping or discovery-driven process. So I know that I need fill-in-the-blank things, some of which are services and products that you all in this room provide. And 68% or 62% of people, excuse me, literally use that experience of AI exclusively as the place where they are trying to go to shop for what it is that they need, even if that's a service. Have any of you done this? You need to buy something, and sometimes it's a specialty thing, right? I know I've got very strange door handles on a piece of furniture and one came off, and I found out it's this non-standard screw. By the way, after doing tons of research on traditional search, I finally went to ChatGPT and I'm like, how do I find a machine screw which is this, you know, these dimensions that is for this piece of furniture? And it literally, like, what happens, right? It pulls up in there these different places that you could use to actually, you know, click on and do that transaction. But 62% of people, that's how they do their discovery and how they shop and decide buying decisions. The other piece that comes along with this, and I think we're more familiar with it, you know, if you're an X person, you know, the little check mark. Now Uber just has introduced this safety authenticity feature, right, that says, do these things to verify you're a real person. It will give you this authenticity check mark. The other thing that's happening that AI is making very real for people doing this discovery is they want to know that this review or this content was created by a real human being and that they can trust it. So part of what we do is we help organizations filter out the AI content that is not accurate or appropriate, and therefore not trusted. So we'll talk a little bit more about how these things kind of fit together. Go ahead, thank you. So when I think about what really happened, so UGC, is anyone familiar with UGC? So user-generated content. When you think about this process of being discovered and what it takes to get discovered, content matters. And especially in this day and age of AI, what will get you picked up the fastest is having video and photos attached to any of these reviews. And I'm often asked, how do we do that? We're going to talk about some strategies to authentically get people to provide the kind of content that you want to help you grow your business more quickly, because you can actually get in front of this and be proactive. But part of this is making sure that all of that social proof, right? And what we've discovered from all the research that we do and from the businesses that we work with is the more that there is real content along with the comments, the more people trust that review to be authentic. So for example, if I were doing research about buying cars and I started reading reviews, if someone wrote a review of their car and everything they liked and didn't like about it, and then also maybe showed a video of themselves in the car using some of their favorite features, we inherently would be much more likely to trust that that was a real person who's really deeply thought about this experience and is really showcasing what they believe to be the differentiators. So part of it is setting yourself up for success and then optimizing for having these things picked up inside of AI engines, which means that there's an actual rating scale and there's as much rich content as possible. The other thing too that people look for as a measure of trust in this AI-driven world is one-star reviews, believe it or not. Do you ever do this when you go to look for something? Do you ever click on the one-star reviews? Yes. I like the distribution. I like to read the one-star reviews. And then I, more importantly, like to see what a brand does about it. If you notice this, I mean, even just go on Yelp and do a very simple, Yelp search at a restaurant. Really great restaurants, really great brands, really great companies, and this is as true in B2B as it is in consumer, will respond to those reviews. Great ones, thanks so much. Glad you love XYZ feature, experience, that Susie was the best server you've ever had in your life. Glad you celebrated your anniversary with us. And they also respond to those, I had a terrible experience reviews. Here's the magic of this. People do not trust reviews when they go there and see it's all fives. Because what do we think when we see that? Somebody paid for it. It was bought and paid for. You got free product, you got an endorsement, you're an influencer, so there's something on the line for you. We don't trust things that are not real. And these are the filters in this world of discovery and thinking about how do you separate the signal. Now, as people who are starting and growing businesses, those terrible reviews that people write online, even if it's a former employee that decides to go on Glassdoor, whatever that is, those reviews about what did not work are pure gold. This is the most affordable customer listening program and research and development program that you can possibly institute. And if you simply respond and acknowledge to someone who writes a bad review about you, I'm sorry you had this experience. We're working to put a fix in place. We hope you'll try us again. That will, A, build more trust that you're an authentic company and that this is real content. Number two, people, even if they have a bad experience, when they feel seen, heard, and acknowledged, will re-engage with you. They will literally shop you, consider you, research you, try you again, because people do have friction in buying experiences. We do have friction in bringing something new to market. We were just talking about bringing out a new product and figuring out, do people like it and what works and what doesn't work? What you do in response to those bad reviews will build more trust and, believe it or not, statistically speaking, more loyal customers in the long run. And I kind of think about it this way. If you think about some of the best friends you've had in your life or some of the best colleagues you've ever had, you probably went through a very difficult time together and you had the struggle and you came out on the other side. And what happens? That relationship is great because it has depth, because you went through something real together. This is what we're all trying to do with our customers and our prospects, is to let them know we're real and also to let them know the feedback they provide shapes the experience. And there are all kinds of wonderful technologies now outside of Bizarre Voice that are very simple plug-and-play things that you can do to just scrape the reviews of what's being said about you, and also, importantly, great tool for competitive research. Look at what people are writing comparatively about whoever you view to be your top competitors. Or if you're trying to grow a company, I also like to look at what kinds of feedback do people who are clients of the size of company maybe that we aspire to become, what do they say about those brands? So therefore, what are the perceptions I want to or need to create to be able to find my ideal customer profile and to be able to refine that product market fit so that you can scale more quickly? It gives you a great aspirational research guide. Next slide, thank you. So 3 questions that we should be asking. So generative AI, it is reshaping what we expect, right? We are expecting more than ever that when we go to search for something to discover, that it should be incredibly easy. We expect, literally, as AI is becoming more popular, to have the answer to any question immediately at our fingertips, and more importantly, tuned to us and our preferences. I was just joking about using Copilot because we're on Microsoft right now. Good news, moving to Google in June, can't wait. But with that said, as much of a blessing as Copilot is, I literally will type in there sometimes, "You are fired, this is awful." And it will say back to me, "I'm sorry that you're feeling that way. I could have tried harder." And someone else was telling me, "Oh, mine congratulates me all the time and says I'm doing a great job." I was like, see, we've tuned these very differently by the way we interact with them. We expect these AI tools to know us, right? And to know our style. Everyone looking for your business expects that from you too. Next, where do generative engines and AI agents influence the consumer journey? Right? Again, as part of this is the way I think about this kind of topic, even if you're not a deeply technical person. It's the next stage in personalization, right? We've all lived through the day and age where customer experience and customer first was this #1 initiative, and mapping these customer journeys and understand who buys from you and these moments of truth that matter. It's so that we can tune content specifically to people and experiences to them and make adjustments where it's needed. Now people expect to have such a sophisticated, customized experience from the moment that they start to search for you in some kind of AI engine, all the way through that buying experience that is as tuned to them as your preferred AI platform that you interact with probably almost daily now is tuned to you. So really thinking very differently about personalization and how to use AI and agentic workflows to scale that personalized touch. Let's face it. As startups and growing businesses, we can't afford to pay people to create all this, right? We need machines that are working as hard for us as we're working for our clients. And then the last one is, I really think about relevance. And part of relevance is people have a continuous expectation that there's new content. I'll go back to the restaurant example. When you go to Yelp and you look at it and the last photos that you can find of the food are from over 3 years ago, do you go to that restaurant? I personally do not. I'm like, that means no one's going there now, and it has probably slipped, right, wrong, or indifferent. One of the things that AI is driving in terms of expectations of every client and prospective client we have is they expect something new to be happening practically daily. They expect new reviews, they expect new content, they expect new interaction. That is a significant shift from the day and time when you could do, the monthly or the weekly, maybe podcast or the quarterly newsletter. People are expecting daily refreshed new content that makes their discoverability and their experience better, easier, and more personalized. Next. So this is something that's very interesting to me. So 79% of consumers are expected to use AI-enhanced search over the course of the next year. And something that I have found incredibly surprising from working in this world now of getting ratings and reviews is that if you have between 100 and 400 reviews about whatever it is that you're doing, what kind of uplift do you think that gets you in terms of conversion of the people who are considering buying from you? Take a guess. It's 2.3x if you get between 100 and 400 reviews. And if you think about 100 in this day and age, that's not that difficult. When you get to 500 reviews, you get to a 3.6x conversion lift. Meaning just by the fact that enough people are talking about you, people are like, I'm going to join the party too. So volume actually does matter, quality volume matters, and it does actually correlate to purchasing and buying behavior and decisions. It also means when you do that activity of being a customer of your company or of whatever you're building or aspire to build, it's why you also need to go research yourself in Copilot and Gemini and Google Shopping and ChatGPT to see what comes up. By the way, I asked ChatGPT to write a speaker's bio for me for this event and for several others. I'm a very public figure, okay? I have a YouTube channel, I've published 6 books, I'm on LinkedIn all the time. It's not difficult for a large language model to find me and source me. Imagine my surprise when it said I graduated from Indiana University, which I did not, by the way. I have 2 degrees from Ball State University and 1 from Ivy Tech. And I thought to myself, if I can look at this about myself and know that what I'm finding isn't true, what in the world are they finding about my company there? What are prospective employees finding when they go put our company in it? So I did it and I tried it. It's fascinating. There are ways to affect this. If you go to the next slide, we'll talk about some of them. So search is really getting redefined, and what it means to search and be successful is changing. And this is the statistic that stands out to me the most. 80% of people looking for your business rely on what's called zero-click results, meaning I'm going to go one time into an AI tool, and I'm going to look for you one time, and I'm not going to click on anything or read anything or hyperlink to anything other than what shows up in that summary. Wow. 0 click. You get 1 at bat. That's why the ratings and reviews and authentic content become so important. The other thing, too, is the people who are doing discovery in AI are much more likely to convert. You can see it with the $sign. People who do that 0-click discovery are 4.4x more likely to convert to a client for you and to buy something than someone who went to look for you in Safari or their browser of choice. So how do we get ready? If you go to the next slide. So content becomes, we've said this before, and you've probably all heard it, content is king. That has never been more true than it is right now. So it is where you can put out your brand. It's where you put out your brand attributes, but it's also where you start to influence people's perception if they go nowhere else other than where that shows up. One of the ways to really be able to source content is to guide the people who you want to write things about you and prompt them with what you want them to say. So even at the very beginning of starting a company or trying to bring something to market, when you're in that test phase or you're in that early scale phase or you've just gotten your pre-seed round of funding and so now you're trying to really zero in on your ideal customer profile, prompting people who do business with you about what a great review and great content looks like for you will help you get what you want and align it better to your brand promise. So Procter & Gamble is a huge client of ours. And we were sitting in their executive conference room a couple weeks ago. And you can imagine how many products are sitting around in their executive conference room. And we were talking about a brand campaign launch for them of deodorant. How exciting is deodorant? There's not a lot new to discover there, is there? I think we've done all of them. It's free of this and free of that and unscented and it travels well and it doesn't leave white stains, whatever all of the things are. So what they've charged us with is, we need you to help us source reviews for a new deodorant, believe it or not, that they're bringing to market. There is apparently something new under the sun there. And hey, we know if this thing is going to be successful, there have to be reviews, some reviews, before we really try to scale this commercially. So help us source these from people, who write about this topic, who are into, health and beauty and wellness. They're influencers. Help us source this content. And here's our creative brief. This is how specific they got in their creative brief. Number 1, no armpit photos or videos. I want you to think about how you would tell me about your experience with deodorant without that. I don't know either, but there are people who do this for a living, by the way. So they got very specific. We want these to be well lit. Extra sort of bonus points if you figure out a way to do a video. And they got so specific about what they wanted and what a great review looked like. Tell us about ease of use, traveling with it, what happens at the gym. They painted out scenarios, and literally we helped them source 1,000 reviews in a week that were tuned to their content. So the second that product launched, 1,000 reviews went to Walmart, 1,000 reviews went to Target, and people were like, oh, this is cool. So somebody had theirs in front of an aloe plant, right? Because there's aloe in the deodorant. Someone else has a video of themselves packing their gym bag and they're putting the deodorant in it because it's their trusted thing before they go to the gym. people got wildly creative. And so even in the worlds that we live in, if you're doing something even more exciting than bringing deodorant to market, which we're all thankful to have, but probably don't wake up every day motivated to go sell it like they do. But think about what are the brand attributes that you want to become the themes, and prompt the people who are your clients. Even if this becomes what ends up in your use cases that you're going to put on your website, prompt them with the themes of what a great story looks like that either helps support more of your success and attract more of that client, or alternately, be able to do some A/B testing of, I think there are two things people might love about us. Let's try both and see what people gravitate toward most. These are simple ways to tune it. So the other piece too is what happens in the generative engine world is the more consistent the themes are with your brand and what's out there, the easier it is for that AI engine to pick up and identify and focus on what you are essentially in the background training it to focus on. So if we were talking about starting a healthcare business up here, and a hallmark aspect of this is trust. It's about connecting the unconnected, and it's about being helpful you're going through a difficult time if you need this specific service. And so if you focused on just those three things, how this helps with trust. How do you trust the healthcare system when information is so disconnected? How, when you're dealing with maybe a critically ill person that you're advocating for or someone end-of-lifing, how does this take that difficult time in your life and make it a little bit easier? How does it keep your confidential information confidential? And if every review and every use case focus on those three things, amazingly enough, there's the large language model that's functioning in the background of that AI that says, okay, here's everything I see and know about this brand that continues to repeat itself because it works on pattern detection. It's the part that AI does the best, is pattern detection. And it's gonna pick up on trust, making my life easier, connecting the disconnected, and confidential information. And then the more it picks up that theme and the more you feed it, the more that large language model will continue to fuel surfacing for your brand what it is that you want to be seen and discovered that leads to the conversion we were talking about. Next slide. So the other thing too, I was talking about this kind of content coach. You can see there's like some keywords that are listed in here in the images. But briefing people in advance, even if it is you send the thank you note, we've all gotten this, right, from some brand. It's like, if you had a great experience, I just had a broken garage door a couple weeks ago, and they immediately said, if you had a great experience, would you write this review on Google? It means a lot to our business. And they said, some of the things that other customers said they've loved about us are our responsiveness, how well we explain something, and how personable the team is. So they prompted like the things that they wanted said, and also put in that hook. It would mean so much for our business. It would mean so much to the team, right? So you feel compelled. The other thing that works in this space, to the degree that your business can support it, is doing sweepstakes. So following up with people, any kind of contest or giveaway, believe it or not, even if it is something small, sparks a ridiculously high amount of engagement from people. It's about a 300% uplift when you run a sweepstakes. Even if it doesn't matter what the reward is, it taps into the competitive nature of people, but it's also a very easy way to very quickly source a lot of review content that is qualified. Qualified and credible because you're choosing the audience. All right. Trust, we were talking about this. Trust, 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 trust. So as tempting as it is, and I've been here too, when you're a smaller business and you're growing and you can't afford maybe marketing people and content creation, and maybe that's not what you love anyway, it is very tempting to go into AI and create these things yourself. The issue is people will not trust it, and spoiler alert, these AI engines that run on large language models actually know if you used their stuff to create what you're telling them is real. So they will actually filter your content out. Next. This is how we really think about it. Can you be accessible, authentic, and abundant with what you're creating? So accessibility, key, because people want to know, and these AI engines want to know, to feed what's called generative engine optimization, or GEO, it's got to be able to access your content. So the more of it that it is, and the more that you have a well-tuned website that's connected to reviews, that got use cases on it, those are all accessible and easier to read and detect. Certainly if it's living on your Google Drive right now, AI is not going to find it, unless you're using, I guess, Gemini inside of it. But that's only helping you. Authentic we talked about, and then abundant. There is no such thing as too much content in this content-driven AI world. Next, please. So what I really think about too is we were talking about auditing your brand, but the idea behind this is really, really be thoughtful about every word that is on your website, every word that is in a use case, and testing with yourself, does this reinforce those themes that you want to have reinforced? The more consistency you have, the better. The richer the content, the better. The more diversified the sources of the content, the better. And it's how you set yourself up to be more discoverable and to get the uplift and conversion that we were talking about. And then some other sources of stranded value. So some of you have call recordings, or you have a way, maybe it's not a call recorded, that your clients contact you to get help, even if that isn't an email. These are all great instances where AI can very quickly scan all of your client emails, inquiries you get from your website, and help you surface key themes. You can also ask it, based on what's showing up from all this feedback, do I have a new product opportunity? Do I need to change my go-to-market pitch and messaging? Sometimes these things are sitting out there and we don't always use them because we feel like we don't have time. AI, even if you are literally using ChatGPT, will speed up your discovery of key themes that people are talking to you about, or what is it that comes in, or is there some seasonality to your business, or is there a shift or adjustment that you can make? Surveys, I feel like they still have somewhat of a place. They just have to be very quick and easy. Most important for all of you at scaling businesses is getting quotes in there. So maybe it's 1 or 2 little questions of how was your experience with a score, and then tell us what it is that we need to know. Or if we could only take one action to improve your experience, what would it be? Or make our product or service better? Those free form comments from people are pure gold. They give you lots of themes. They also give you things you can surface in your social media and branding campaigns. Live events. So something on a day like today, right? If I wanted to amplify the value of Bizarre Voice, which I will, I'll post a photo at some point today and tag my company on LinkedIn, right? About this live event and what we talked about, right? About being discovered, being trusted, being chosen, being authentic in this world. Always use those live conversation interactions, even if it's you send yourself a couple notes and it's going in a Google Doc and you're going to add that in with your AI around all this other content that you get. And then the last piece, and I feel like this one is one that it sounds so simple and a lot of us miss, but it's also closing the loop with people who give you feedback. You know, I mentioned responding to the comment if someone writes, you know, a rating or a review or they, you know, send something through your website. But it's also when you have, even if it's a one-off conversation with someone and you're going to use some part of their idea, going back to that person and saying, thanks for our conversation, I appreciated it. It helped me see this differently. Here's what's changing as a result of your feedback. There is immense power and stranded value and loyalty that's driven with clients when they know that the feedback they gave you turned into something, even if it's small. The other thing too is AI and automation can do a great job of automatically helping you close the loop, like put reminders on your calendar. Someone that I was chatting with does Feedback Fridays. So he has a prompt and it's set up that every Friday he does like one closed loop client email. And sometimes it's just a touch base, but it's programmed on his calendar and then it triggers an automatic message. So he's got, you know, it's pulling from their CRM instance in this case, but you could pull from your spreadsheet and say, write a Friday message from me to Bob about the new feature we're bringing out, and it'll auto draft it, and then you like copy paste send, or if you're really sophisticated, you program in the email address and it sends it for you every Friday. Some simple tips, but the last piece of this is once you work so hard to get this feedback, make sure that you let people know what's happening with it. And with that, I'd be happy to take some questions. Tell me one thing that you will do differently when you leave here based on our conversation today or from someone you chatted with at your table. Yes? Mm-hmm. And a hot take on that, something I call more FaceTime and less time. If you just pull your mobile device out and you record a little selfie video and say, I wanted to say thank you so much for giving us feedback. You made our product better, and what I wanted to let you know is the features that you've asked for are coming in our next roadmap release. They are blah, 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 and I included a link in the email. so that you can read the release notes, boom, send. And then people see your face and it's like, they think you personally called them, like, wow. And they have another physical, visual touch point with you. So that's a great one. And isn't it funny how often we just don't do the last part? It's like, ooh, we're so close. And then we just kind of never got to it. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. You can. No, it's not too far. So there's a couple of different ways that I've done it over time. Something that we do, we share with people like their statistics of their sort of amplification from syndication. So when we take that one review and it goes to these thousands of different places, how much of a revenue uplift, conversion of shoppers did you get? And then we also have an estimated network revenue measurement that says approximately how much money is that for your business. And then we do the same on the anonymous shoppers, so our contextual commerce products, of how many people did we correctly detect and then get them to convert into a buyer, even if we didn't know anything about basically their demographics. If you're an anonymous shopper, I don't know if you're a 35-year-old mother or an 85-year-old retiree. That data is blocked. So we do those as well. Something that I have done, though, on a kind of, I'll call it a little bit at a time level, is what I call return on insights, which is when you get feedback and then you use it in your business, what's the result? Or for a client, sometimes it's they adopt some other part or buy some other part of what it is that you could sell them, and then showing them the impact. You can measure those things a little at a time, and it doesn't have to be super sophisticated. So it depends on how much art versus science you want to do. Yeah. Others, yes. Yes. The healthcare system providers will be full of one-star reviews, so that will be a rich target area for you. It'll be harder to find five-star reviews. Right. The five-star reviews you'll find will be, Susie was the most attentive nurse while my mom was dying, and she wasn't even working, and she came in and checked on my mom. It'll be about the person, not the system, is my hypothesis. Worth testing, but you'll learn more from the one-star reviews than from the 5. Or the 2-star reviews, whatever. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned you hit upon all the inaccuracies you find when you go to look at AI.
Yes.
What are some of the benefits or new areas of growth from companies that are losing business to go back to clients that have bad information?
Mm-hmm.
A way to pitch some other way to do it.
One of my favorite examples that works incredibly well is showing people the ratings and reviews that are, I'm going to call them authentic and verified versus not. And the simplest way to do this comparison right now is show them what you can pull from Reddit. So Reddit it is not trusted at all. There is nothing verified about that. I could go on there right now and write that I bought a set of pots and pans, for example, and they were awful and they all broke. They do not verify that. Maybe I haven't bought pots and pans in 15 years. They do not know that. They do not source anything to say, are you credible? By the way, there are people who amazingly spend their lives writing crappy reviews trying to torpedo brands and people. Like it's a whole thing. Like they try to do this on purpose to shift that algorithm. So show them, like, here's what people would perceive about you from Reddit, right? About your brand and your brand promise. These are unverified people, but it's still, strangely enough, a source people use a lot. And the other thing too is right now, a lot of these AI engines screen scrape data from Reddit and pull in as part of that 0-click search. So now you're getting verified content with unverified content. This is where the human interaction and the context and actually knowing a brand and creating intentional verified content has a measurable market value. Because it's one thing if you fell short and didn't deliver well for someone. That happens all the time, and you get sourced and feedback that we had a bad experience. It's something entirely different when someone does not know your brand, did not use your product or service, and then wrote that. Very different, very different. And the other thing too is to overcome, I call it the Reddit phenomenon, you have to build much more trusted content so that you're kind of moving yourself to the top of that stack rank inside of those large language models and training them around what's real. Very few companies have people specifically sitting in marketing and advertising that have that skill today. Yes. Yes. Yes.
like that. I think about I'm old, so I think about things like good housekeeping seal of approval.
Yes.
Are things like trade associations, things like that, going to be kind of becoming a new opportunity for that? Like I'll come up with a random one, say the plumbing, heating, and cooling contractors association.
Yes. Those are very trusted because they're third party verified, meaning your business might belong, but someone third party vets that credential and decides whether or not you qualify for it. So yes, that's among the most trusted because there's third party verification that doesn't come from you or from the people who are buying from you. Like it's viewed as a neutral, I would call it, adjudication of whether you should have that credential. Absolutely. Display those things proudly. Your badges. Yes.
One of the things that I'm just not saying is that we talked about earlier is trade value.
Yes.
So as my current role, I'm study two, I'm an AI champion at the organization we're currently building out
Yeah.
For a large company, how to properly implement AI
Mm-hmm.
at different departments. And we have massive amounts of data that we don't think about
Yes.
implementing or using as training data.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the biggest takeaway for me is that is all either anecdotal knowledge
Yes.
or memorialized in an Excel file somewhere.
Yes. And you know what? So something besides the gift of the migration, in my perspective, from the Microsoft stack and Outlook and all this jazz to Google that I'm using as a change management moment with my team, we do a lot of business reviews for clients and value readouts. There's rich data that all these statistics I was just describing to you and success stories and where we're recommending, hey, you don't have this feature turned on, like the discoverability API, authentic discoverability API. And if you turned it on, here's what would sort of hypothetically happen given your context. Most people have those living on their laptop, or they're living in various drives and folders and call recordings that are spread all over the place. So part of what we're doing in this move to Google is all of your value readouts and business readouts are going to go in the same Google Drive, so we can at least use Gemini for quick best practice search. Okay, so if you were presenting to Procter & Gamble, and now I'm presenting to L'Oreal, and you're talking about social sampling campaigns, and I need to talk about social sampling campaigns, I could quickly run just the little Gemini or create a Gemini gem that'll run on top of it, and I could pull everybody's great slide, automatically do a slide deck, quick hit another button, it'll update the data for my client, and then off we go. I can't run AI on something that is distributed and sitting on someone's laptop or in, I mean, you can do it if it's in 15 different places. It's just that my CIO looks at me and is like, you're killing me right now. I'm like, I hear you. And she's awesome, by the way. Other questions, comments, feedback? Yes.
I think my biggest takeaway is closing the loop.
Yes.
That ending bit,
Mhm.
because I'm very client focused. I'm late with my client, and I sometimes let that fall because no one's telling me to do it.
Yes.
And the tip of have somebody have my calendar remind me
Yes.
to do it, so I'm at least obliged to the calendar telling me to do it is very important because it still hangs in the back that I should be doing it, but I'm not. So that's my biggest, like, okay, let's go ahead and get that done.
Yes. And what that reminds me of is, have you ever wished you had a twin? I have long wished that I had a twin at work that worked as hard as I was working, and now I can have it. My digital twin does smart things and remembers things for me that I can offload cognitively. It's remarkably helpful, except for the moments my type in Copilot, you're fired. But most of the time, it is remarkably helpful because you don't have to remember everything or have this such a sophisticated task list. I love the book, The 4-Hour Workweek, if you know this, by Cal Newport et al. Essential synopsis, do value work, not volume work. And value is what we pay you to produce. That is how you keep a growing business afloat. And the litmus test is if we put a recent university graduate onto whatever task you're spending time on, how long would it take them to become proficient? And things like remembering to write a closed loop email would take like what, about 30 minutes to become proficient at that if you just graduated university. It's like, I could offload that and make space in my brain to figure out the next creative prompt to bring deodorant to market, or the next leadership coaching for my team, or whatever that is. That's a value skill. A volume skill is, did I send the email? Did I do the follow-up? What happened with the meeting notes? Did the recording go out? You can have a second you in this world, and you can train the second you to offload those nagging tasks that you have to do as part of your job. But let's face it, nobody ever got into their job to be the best at responding to emails all the time or writing the Friday Fast Five that I send to my team every week, right? That's not why you do it. You offload those volume things so you do the value part, which is why you're driven and motivated to do what you do. Amazing. Yes. Yes. The most important thing is that it's connected to their real profile, because sometimes what happens is when people who are influencers or pseudo-influencers or have a following do something for a brand that's more intentional because they've been asked or invited to do that, they will build a separate identity. Like they'll connect it to a different email or a different platform than the one where they have the influence and following. And the deal is the brand wants your influence and following. So it's more verifying that they are writing the review from the platform or place where they have the following. That's what's more important. But then yes, in any go-to-market strategy you do and marketing campaigns, you've got to assess your right channel for your audience. You know, we just stood up TikTok shops, you know, the ability to help our clients do that. And for some companies and brands, that's an amazing fit because that's where their audience goes for discoverability. That's where their audience goes for search. And they want to transact inside of that workflow and not have to click out to the company's website or go to the link below. Does this happen to you? Go to the link below. People don't like that. They want the zero-click experience. So it's then thinking about like what channel does your audience live on, right? A lot of businesses, it's LinkedIn, right? Consumer products, you know, now you're into the TikTok, Instagram. Do people want to go directly to the website? Yeah, but it's more that it's connected to their authentic persona where they can be verified as a real human and where their real following lives, because the more the following they have, the more a large language model prioritizes it, and a search engine optimization does as well. So then you get more visibility and it's more trusted and it will get more uplift. Excellent. Well, I can't think of a better topic than large language models to tell you to keep living large. And thank you for everything that you're building. And it's been great to be with all of you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And I hope this is more the middle of the book and not two bookends where you start and finish. It was great to have you here, and I loved how engaged everyone was. But wanted to just give you a couple of announcements. Next Wednesday, we've got a plug and play event that is featuring Ethel Massing from Parkview Hospital, and Alyssa is going to be here on our panel. We're going to be talking about innovation in the healthcare and life sciences space. So if you work in healthcare and life sciences or adjacent to it, please join us next Wednesday at 9:30. And then also on May 11th, we will be welcoming Plug and Play's, I think, 5th batch of med tech startups coming in from all over the globe. We will have a panel discussion around the capital stack, and then also about what's happening in life sciences in the state of Indiana. And we will hear pitches, short pitches from the new batch of startups that are coming into Indiana. So look for some announcements there. And again, let's give Karen a hand for what she's, yeah. Thanks. Have a great day, everybody.